If I wasn't so lazy, I'd
make a good VR port.
But you are lazy, right?
don't get me started.
It's November 2015. The eagerly awaited Fallout 4 is released on console and Windows. It is a buggy mess, but widely considered pretty good by the fanbase. People are happy to play another Fallout game in a new setting. Tom Howard says, "I want to keep making money off this game, but I don't want to do a lot of work." Probably. I don't know, I wasn't there, but he probably said this. And so, in December 2017, Fallout 4 is released again for VR. But sadly, the quality control team were all blind or dead or something. Again, I don't know. But they just say, yeah, this all looks good, without giving it a single look. The guns don't work properly at all. Aiming means nothing because the guns are inaccurate as shit, half the sights are unusable, and the scopes don't even function in the slightest. Shortly after, Bethesda patches the game and says that scopes are now usable, but these are shit too. The modders quickly rustle Bethesda's hair, tell them, "Don't worry your pretty little head about it," and set to work to fix their sheer, unforgivable incompetence. Hi everyone and welcome back. So those of you who have played Fallout 4 VR know that if you play this game straight out the gate, it is beyond awful. And this is because that Bethesda knows that their fan base includes a lot of very dedicated and talented modders. So what they did was they simply released a half-baked VR port of their game, slapped a £40 price tag on it, and called it a day, and relied on these modders to fix everything for them. And my biggest issue with all of this is the fact that the guns don't work. And that's what this video is all about. Shooting people, animals, and robots is how you'll be solving all of your problems in this game, so it needs to be good. But there are a whopping 5 massive issues I came across, even in 2022, 5 years after the game's release. The first one is the reloading, which is a thing in just about every VR shooter ever released. When Bethesda ported this game into VR, they made absolutely zero effort to implement any immersive reloading. This game makes you just press a button and it does it automatically. Now this is lazy as shit, but it can be forgiven, as I'm sure this was probably deemed to be too much work for too little payoff. Number 2 is the scopes. Now this can't be forgiven, and it's the fact that the scopes don't work. So like I said, when the game was first released, the scopes didn't work at all. They fixed it a few months afterwards, and now they kind of work in a very half-assed way similar to Population 1, where it blacks out the rest of the field of view outside of the scope in a big black vignette. But we've seen better implementation of scopes in every other VR shooter. Of course, except Pop 1, but no one likes the people who play that game. Number 3 is that the other sights that do work completely suck. Pipe guns have screws that are held together in place, but they only give you a horizontal bearing. So if you're aiming too high or too low, you have no way of knowing. And for the more advanced weapons with dot sights, where is the dot? This thing is almost impossible to see, and it was just so obvious that Bethesda did exactly 0 minutes of quality control with this. Number 4 is the fact that guns aren't accurate, so for a VR title that requires you to actually aim with human hands, you kind of need your guns to accurately shoot where you're aiming. If your aim is spot on but your bullets are still missing, then that is not fun. And my last gripe is that you can't hold rifles with 2 hands. This to me is such a ridiculously easy fix that they just couldn't be bothered to even look at. So much of the basic functionality of the game's weapons has been completely neglected, and it shows. Being forced to hold a sniper rifle with 1 hand isn't an immersive way to do things, especially when you aren't even given any hands to look at. So yes, implementation of guns is awful. You could decide not to play with guns and use melee weapons, but then you'll be screwed against anything long range and you're massively limited. And well, gunfights are still fun. So luckily for us, the modders are on hand to fix Bethesda's blatant cash grab. Here are some of the mods that you can get to fix these issues, and I do have links in my description. One is Better Scopes VR, which makes them more in line with how scopes work in regular VR shooters. This takes the worst thing about the game and turns it into one of the best. Number 2, VR handmade reflex sights. This simply gives a 3rd screw in the pipe gun's crosshair so that you can tell if you're aiming correctly on the vertical axis. Definitely worth it, as pipe guns are the bread and butter of your starting weapons. Number 3 is improved reflex sight visibility, which allows you to actually see the crosshair in a reflex sight. Number 4 is more accurate weapons, which is a mod that allows you to hit where you're actually aiming without pointlessly missing due to a gun's accuracy rating. And number 5 is FRIK. Now this is a must-have mod for so many immersion reasons, because it gives you hands and a torso that you can see. But for gunfights specifically, it means you can actually use your secondary hand to grab the front of the gun to assist with your aiming. At the time of me making this video, it's far from a perfect state, but it's already 1,000 times more than what Bethesda have offered us, so I'm grateful to have it. Now it is a sad state of affairs that such a huge development team have clearly given this project such little love. All of the mods I've mentioned only really drag the game kicking and screaming into a playable state. But with that being said, when you've modded it to make all of these quality of life improvements, the gunfights in this game are really good. The Fallout games have always been games that involve a great deal of slow-paced nothingness with brief moments of pure mayhem thrown in between. These moments are always really fun anyway, but VR it does make these so much better, and here's why you should play it. The first reason is that VATS has been changed, so instead of selecting body parts to hit specifically, VATS is now just a matrix style bullet time for you to pick up your shots more more accurately. This makes the game so much more forgiving, but the idea of you choosing to spend your limited bullet time means that some of the overpowered enemies can at least get a few shots in the face, or maybe a critical strike before they start charging towards you. It also really helps you against the smaller and quicker enemies such as the bugs and mole rats, which brings me nicely onto the second reason why it's so good, which is the fact that jump scares are real in this game. If you have a feral ghoul launch himself at you when you're quietly scavenging through boxes and shelves, it will make you shit your pants. And as it turns out, there are a lot of enemies in this game that are happy to launch themselves at you. Ghouls, mole rats, yaoguais, deathclaws, dogs, they're not familiar with the concept of personal space. I always jump at these and it's always a lot of fun. Number 3 is that there's lots of cover for you to physically use in the Commonwealth. A lot of the firefights are enhanced by the ability for you to use broken cars and bits of debris as cover. You can physically duck behind these using your actual real-life human legs, and you can use your actual real-life human arms to lean guns around a corner and blind fire if you want. These options make for some really cool immersive shootouts and for you to use your terrain to your advantage, which is really cool, especially when your terrain is this, which is my last point, and it is the setting of this game. At the end of the day, it is still Fallout 4's vast and oddly beautiful landscape. At the moment, virtual reality dev teams are still pretty small, and therefore the games we're used to seeing are also relatively small in scale. And seeing this video on a flat screen doesn't do it justice. When you have a headset on and you are looking around the Commonwealth, standing in this open world and taking it all in, it is bloody awesome, and I definitely recommend it to any Fallout fans for you to try this for yourselves. So I do love to moan, and I think all my points, both positive and negative, are valid, but I also love playing this game in VR, and if you're watching this video, I think you will too. But do take my recommendations on the mods. It does take some time investing in this, but there's a program I used called Vortex which did make my life easier. Some people will say it's not perfect, but for me it really helped me out. This game has come such a long way, and we owe it all to the modder base. So to any modders out there watching this, thank you. And thanks for watching, guys. Stay safe out there.